In this Corona training video, we'll be going over an introduction to the Corona point of sale. We'll cover how to start and end your day, how to balance your cash drawer, how to process a transaction, how to process a return, and many more. The first thing we'll want to cover in this training is how to start your day at the point of sale. Let's first select number 3 in the top right, and let's select the cash deposit / starting balance option. Here we'll input the starting amount that we're going to start within our cash drawer at the beginning of our day. You then input the amount that you're putting within your cash drawer. So maybe you like to start your cash drawer with $150 in it. Select 150, select enter. There is also the option to make this a denominated deposit, meaning if we were to click in here, we could input the exact amount of $100 bills, exact amount of $20 bills, and so on and so forth. So that way we can get a more specified starting balance and starting deposit. We'll just keep it as a lump sum for right now because that's the default. Once we have it show up on the left-hand side, it'll tell you the total for the amount of cash we're putting in. We're going to go ahead and just select total in the bottom right-hand side and treat this as though it's just a regular cash transaction. So I'm just going to select cash on the top right, and we are ready to start our day. So as you go throughout the day, you're going to take many different transactions that are, of course, going to affect the balance that's going to be in your cash drawer. But once you end up finishing your day, you'll select number 3 in the top right, and we'll select balance POS end of day. Here, it'll prompt us to input the amount of cash that's within our cash drawer. So seeing as I didn't do any transactions, it's just going to be $150 in my cash drawer. Now, this option of balancing your cash drawer and ending your day can be configured a couple different ways. One of the main ways you can change this is making it a denominational balance on your cash drawer. So kind of like we were talking about before with the starting balance, you can input the exact number of 10s, 20s, 5s, and so on and so forth of the dollar bills that are within your cash drawer. You can determine how many tries the cashier gets to get the exact amount or close to the exact amount of the correct count within the cash drawer. So maybe you want them to have only 2 tries. You have 1 try to tell you that, okay, you're off or you're considerably off and you need to recount everything. Or maybe you just want it to go through once, so they need to remember to be very careful with their count from the get-go. You're also able to set up a range for an acceptable amount that is away from the amount that the system is tracking. So if the system is tracking that there's $175 from the cash drawer and I put in 173, if I set up a range that's within $5 of the correct amount, it will accept that as a close enough balance and it will close out for the end of day. Now, if you do run out of tries on the balance attempt, it will just close out with the latest attempt as it assumes that that's the most accurate attempt that you're putting into the system. So if I were to put in 190 here and hit enter and apply, it'll tell me that my amount differed from the expected amount. And by default, the system will expect an amount that's exact. So if you want to change that, we definitely have options to do so. But for the sake of example, I'm just going to put in the correct amount, select enter, and select apply. Now it's going to close out my point of sale by logging me out, and it will print out an end of day statement, which has the key metrics of the sales that you've done for the day. Now let's log back into the point of sale. By default, you'll have 2 test logins, a login code of 1 and a login code of 2. You can change these at a later time on the Corona Studio, and that will be covered in the following training. So I'm going to select 1 and then click login. Now while we're on the main page, let's go over a basic transaction. So I'm going to add my beef jerky item here. I can use some of the functions on the right-hand side to change some aspects about the transaction, such as removing the item I just added, or maybe changing the item price for this transaction, or changing the quantity of this individual item. So maybe a customer is buying a dozen of these bags of beef jerky. I can select 12 and then change quantity, and I'll change the quantity to 12. That way I don't have to scan it 12 times or hit this button 12 times. Maybe because this customer is purchasing 12 individual bags of it, I want to give them a slight discount. So I'll say, hey, I'll knock a little bit off of that, the cost for this item. So I'll change it to 4.5 for each individual bag, and then select change item price, and it will change it here. So the change item price is only on an individual transaction. If I were to ring this up on the following transaction, it won't default to that $4.50. It will stick with the set price that is in the Corona Studio. Next, if I were to add a whole bunch of items on the receipt, and maybe the customer says, oh, I forgot my wallet at home. I'll be back maybe tomorrow. Well, I just want to clear out all the items on this transaction so that way I can take care of the next customer. So I'll just hit cancel receipt. This will clear out everything that's currently on the receipt. That way I can quickly move to the next transaction. Let's go ahead and finalize one of these transactions now. So I'm going to maybe sell some tequila and some beef jerky. And I'll go and hit total in the bottom right hand corner. Then it'll give me the option to pay for this either through cash, credit, or whatever the customer wants to use for payment. You can select the specific amount. Maybe they're going to give me $120. And then I can hit enter and it will charge to cash, or I can of course hit cash in the top right. So I'll hit that and it will take that payment and let me know how much change I owe to the customer. Now, next up, we're going to select number 2 in the top right. This will show us a couple different options. We can add items by pulling up a product search. So if we open this, we can add a key letter or phrase or word here to look up a product. So maybe customer brings up a product, the barcode is all scuffed up and it won't scan, and I want to look it up on here. This would be a great tool for that. So I'll just add the letter A here. Maybe this is Cab, Arizona. I'll add that and close, and now it's on the receipt. And I can total it out, take $2 for it, hit cash, and it'll close out the receipt. So now let's go over returns and voids. So to do that, we'll select number 2 in the top right, and we'll go to the receipt archive. Here, it will show you your 15 most recent transactions. If, let's say, a customer doesn't have their receipt and it happened a while ago and it's not within the 15 most recent transactions, there is a way to do a return without using a receipt. And I'll show you that in a little bit here. But first, let's go over our return page option. So for this specific item, actually, let's go to this receipt. So this one has 2 different items on it. Maybe this customer came back and they want to return the beef jerky and they want to keep the tequila. So we'll select the return page on the right-hand side, and it'll pull up all the items that are currently on this receipt. It also gives us an option for adding some additional text. Maybe you want to give a reason for why they're returning it. Changed mind. It's fine. Add that in there. And then we'll select the item that needs to be returned. So we'll select the beef jerky, select return of goods, and then we can, as you see there, there's going to be the reason on the receipt, and we can print out that receipt by hitting total. And this will be the amount we're going to give back as change. So we can just hit cash to give them the cash back. It'll finalize it, and it will show you the change amount in the bottom right-hand side here. Now, let's say they don't have the receipt, and this transaction happened yesterday, so it's not going to show up on the receipt archive in the 15 most recent transactions. One great option we have is to scan all the items that they are returning. So maybe they're returning a couple of things of beef jerky and some tequila. We can then select number 2 in the top right, and then use this return button that's under number 2. This will then flip the transaction, and we can then return the full funds back to them, hitting total, and then cash or credit, depending on how you want to return the funds back to them. So maybe they say, oh, I use my credit card. I really like my funds put back on my credit card. We can then select credit, and it will communicate with your credit card terminal and return back on their card, and of course, close out the transaction. Next option here is going to be also under number 2, and it's going to be under receipt archive. We'll talk about voids. So voids are a great way of undoing a transaction and making it as though it never happened. They're only available for cash transactions and credit transactions that happen same day. They're not available for cash or credit transactions that happen after you've done an end of day statement. So if it happened like a week ago, you can't go back and void it on here just because it's already been closed out and finalized. You also can't do voids for debit transactions because debit transactions often operate a little bit differently than credit or cash do, especially when it comes to credit card terminal, because it takes out funds immediately from their bank account, so we can't necessarily void it. We'll have to process it as a return. But for example, let's select this Arizona can transaction. I can go ahead and hit void, and we'll undo it as though it never happened. And then if I needed to reprocess it, I could. Thank you for watching this Korona POS Help Center video. For more information, please check the description down below, where you'll find our online manual page, as well as the contact information for our support center
and any other resources that'll help you get the most out of your KORONA POS system.